Ladybug has a zone 5 has a ladybug. So this one, points to the left. There's 3 of them in the quilt. You actually, let me think, do you have all of the pieces? Yes, you do. So you could sew all 3 ladybugs, because if you've done your cutting for the second set, you've actually cut all 3 sets of ladybugs. So instructions, follow along, work through it, and if you decide to go ahead and make the next 2, you're all ready, because we're not going to make another video for those. We're just going to reference you back to this one. Okay, let's get busy making ladybug. All right, let's get busy with the ladybug block. So we make this block 3 times in Floral Felicity. And let me just find what page it's on. 62, okay. All right, on 62, okay, this is one. So the first thing I always do when I start a new block in here is I just look, what lines am I using on the Wonder Curve ruler? I see orange and I see black. Okay, so I get that in my head, doing orange and black. Of course, I have everything pre-cut. This just makes me so happy. I just wish I had a pre-cut fairy that would show up and do it. All right, our first thing we're doing is we're going to use the red fabric, and we are cutting 2A out of the 3.5 by 3.5, and we're using the orange lines. Does not matter if it's right side up or right side down. I'm looking to see what I'm doing with it up here. Okay, I'm just going to leave it the way I have it. Go ahead and cut. So all I did was line up the V on the orange solid line V on the corner of the 2 red pieces. Okay, this is my discard. So now I have 2 there. Now these are twist C with orange lines. I need 1 up and 1 down. So that's how they are. And twist C, I cut over here with the orange dashed V. So that sits right on the corner. This is my discard. Save those. And now I have the shimmer A. I have 2 of these. And I'm cutting shimmer A with the black V. So black V, this is like we made in Hollyhock. So there's my A piece. Okay, now I have some, now I'm cutting the background pieces. So shimmer B, I should have 1 4 and a 3/4 by 4 3/4. And I'm going to cut 2 shimmer B's out of here. So first step is you can look back on the instruction pages, or I can tell you, it's pages 6 and 7. Cut your piece in half diagonally, and then I just stack those on top of each other. Doesn't matter if it's right side up or right side down. And then I'm using the orange lines here, so I'm trimming, lining it up at the 4s, trimming off the extras, the extra fabric, rotate. Now put your box corners in your orange solid box, orange box lines, cut in your curve cutout, and that gives you 2 shimmer B's with the orange line. Now I need 2 twist D using the orange line. So here I have 2, and it does matter if it's up or down. So I need 1 up, 1 down. Yes, that's what I have. So now I line it up on the orange dashed V right here. Cut in the curve cutout, and I'm not using the C piece. I'm only keeping the D pieces. And I have 1 of each going each direction. And then my last one is 1 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. So I am going to make shimmer B with the black lines. So first step is to cut it in half diagonally. And I'm making 2 of these. So then I'm just going to stack them on top of each other. This is the black line. So I know at this stage what I'm doing is lining it up on the 3, trim off the extra points, rotate. Now put it in the black box corners right here. And then cut in your curved slot. And just that fast, we have all of our curves cut. I just love our piecing tools that help you cut curves. It's fast, it's consistent, it's safe. All right, so now we're going to set up looking at sew the curves. So we know what we do here. All right, those black ones go with the black B here. My orange line shimmer A goes with the orange line shimmer B. And then I have 2 more curves. I'm always checking this fabric because it's so hard to tell if it's right side up or down. And there. So this should look like a rectangle. If you switch these, you're going to get this awkward shape. Okay. Rectangle, rectangle. Now for sewing, it's the same setup, always the same. Concave stays on the bottom, convex is on top. I know we have a 1/4 inch tail on everything. So 1/4 inch tail, we're gonna go to the sewing machine. We're gonna go ahead, we'll sew that ABs together. We'll sew these, and we'll sew this. All right, this is the orange line AB. Just going to position that with 1/4 inch tail. Sew a few stitches and then all right, now let's do our CD. And again, 1/4 inch tail, sew a few stitches. I'm just chain piecing all of these. Concave on the left, convex flips over, 1/4 inch tail. Go ahead, feed that in till it grabs both fabrics. And then we have one more sample here with our shimmer A and B with the black lines. So concave on the left, flip it over, 1/4 inch tail. These pieces do get small, just go slow. Let me just show you that one more time. You know, when we set this up, I like my curves to already be going together. So I line them up so that the two curves are just going to flow into each other. If I stick it out here really far, it's hard to get it to flow together. Flow might be a good word here. And if you have a bigger piece, you know, that angle changes. So let's go ahead and press. We'll press to our focus fabrics, and then we'll look at our next steps. Okay, all of our curves are sewn and pressed. Press to your focus fabric. Now let's look at our square up. That's our next step. And we're going to put them together in like, you know, like these two are the same. So I put those together first. Let's go ahead and square up these. These are the black lines. So in your book, it says black dots. So we are going to position our black dots on the curve. Get it nice and close for you. So black dots on the curve, just like that. You've got the whole curve to play with. I'm going to come down a little bit. Just get my fabric lined up as close as possible to square, trim two sides, rotate, and trim the other two sides. What I'm looking at here is I'm lining up my trimmed edges on the twos, because this is going to be a 2x2 block. Let's do it one more time. So black dots on the curve. Can you get 2x2? Yes. And then trim two sides and then rotate. Now put trimmed edges on your 2-inch marks. Now trim whatever is left. Okay, those are done. Now our next one the book talks about is our pattern, is this AB with our orange lines. This is going to be a 3x3, and we're using the orange dots. So you have orange dots on your Wonder Curve ruler right here. Put those on your curve. Go ahead and trim the side and top. Rotate your block. Put trimmed edges on the 3s and trim whatever is left. And notice how I always have like my pinkies anchored over here on the edge. It really helps hold the ruler so it doesn't slip. You can put some non-slip things on it. I like mine to move around personally. That's my personal preference. So whatever you do to make it work for you. We sell a removable grip on our website. It's called Scow Grips. So, okay, now we have 2 more square ups. We have, make it look like the pattern. We have this one first. This is going to be CD twist, and it will be 1 3/4 by 3. First thing I'm doing is I'm putting the orange dot on the curve. And then right here, I have the 1.5 inch mark on the curved seam. So I'm telling the curve where it's going to live after we sew all the blocks together by positioning it there. Trim 2 sides, rotate your block. Now put trimmed edges on the 3 and 1 3/4, because that is the size we are going for here. And by doing that, we've created this seam allowance, and our curve will hit the intersection. Now our last block is the other orientation for the CD shape. So here we're looking at the orange dot on this side, put it on the curve, and your 1.5 inch mark down here on your curve seam. Trim 2 sides. Rotate. Now look at trimmed edges. Put trimmed edges on 3 and 1 3/4. And again, that's how we get this seam allowance. Okay, we have everything squared up. And we are ready to, oh, let's see what is next. All right, let's turn the page. All right, we are going to, we're going to modify the AB block. So the AB sews together. So this is the AB with the orange lines. We are sewing it together here, press that seam open, and then we're going to trim off a little bit. So I'm going to go press, sew, and then press open, and then I'll come back and show you how to trim. All right, I just realized the pattern doesn't say sew it together. It says trim it and then sew it into a column. It does not matter. This works also. So what are we doing? We're trimming 3/4 of an inch off. So this right now is 3 inches. I know, you're like, you don't even know what you're doing. So to cut off 3/4 of an inch, what I want to do is keep 2 1/4 inches. So I personally like to set it up where I have my ruler covering the parts I want to keep. So this is a 3-inch block, cutting off 3/4. Okay, so you can do that before you sew it together or after. I obviously sewed together first and then did the trimming. Pattern shows, hey, trim the 3/4 and then sew it together. So either way works. But now we are ready to lay out the ladybug. This is just the cutest little creature living in our Floral Felicity pattern. So you're just looking at the pattern. Go ahead and lay out your C and D blocks. And then here's where you have all your extra pieces. So this has a little patchwork going on in the middle because we are trying to create that, you know, that the ladybug has 2 black spots on it. So I'm setting these up. So first thing we need to do, looking at this, we're going to sew this into columns. So these are sewn together. I'm going to sew those together, press seams open, these. Before I can sew this column together, I need to sew these little sections, these 2 little squares first, press the seam open, and then sew it into columns. So we're going to sew columns, press seams open, sew columns together, press seams open. All right, I thought of something when I went to sew. So I have this here. This is just a reminder. So I'm going to put this here like this. I'm going to the sewing machine, going to sew this end. So if you will come in 1/4 of an inch, put your needle down, and then back stitch off, and then sew back on. That will help hold those layers together here so that you don't have one of them that will shift on you. So if that helps, try that with your machine. That's how I like to do it, so the one of them doesn't shift. And that allows me to not use pins. If you're pinning and it's great, then no worries. Here is the ladybug block all done. Notice I pressed all my seams open, and I went ahead and added the sashing that is shown in your pattern for zone 5. And the direction, you can totally turn it any way you want. We randomly set them up so that they go all directions, so that much like ladybugs just kind of go every which way. So I hope you had a good time making the ladybug block for zone 5. I thought of one more thing to mention. Down here, the black and the red, they do not match. They are not supposed to match. It's supposed to feel like a ladybug's head, you know, where there's that little bit of space. So anyway, mine doesn't match. On a couple of mine, in the first time I made them, they match. Sometimes they don't. A lot of that has to do with the bias, working with different fabrics. So that's a close-up of what it should look like.